I'd like to give a short background story to building preservation in Sweden. And then Johan will talk a little about window restoration methods used in Sweden. And then Birger will talk about his infrared smoke filters. And then we have a coffee break. And then Peter will talk about glass production at Lamberts. And Johan will come back and talk about the use of low emission glass. And then Klaus will present their production of linseed oil paint. And then finally, before lunch, Björn, who is the founder, is here, founder of a company making replicas of old metalware for windows, will present their active business. And then, hopefully it works. Lunch will be catered here, but there are no tables, so you have to like sit and scoop in on the chairs or standing or something. And then after lunch, the real challenge starts. I'm trying to divide you in 5 groups, where you spend 20 to 30 minutes at each station, where these guys giving presentations will discuss and talk and take answers or show things. So they're placed out in the building in different places, so you're supposed to rotate around this, and that's a real challenge, but I hope it will work. Yeah, shall we start?
Yes, but first of all, I think some technical information, Vilnius, can you tell us about the microphone?
Yeah, I already told most of the people, so the microphone is really sensitive. If anyone is going to be talking about anything, you better be sure that it's not a secret, because it's going to go all over the internet. So.
Yeah. We're streaming this online. Yeah.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome. Welcome to the Museum of Urban Wooden Architecture. My name is Indre, and I'm the head of the museum. It's a great joy to meet you all here today, because as the main purpose of this museum is to become a space that gathers a community who loves wood and who appreciates more wooden architecture than craftsman who works hand-on. Thank you for our guests who came from different countries to share their experiences and the methods of restoring wooden windows. And of course, especially thank you for Henrik Larsson, who is the author of the idea of this seminar, the organizer and the moderator of the event. So thank you all for coming, and Henrik, the floor is yours.
Yeah, maybe it's time for Josephus to... I don't know if you like this, or maybe I like it.
Mano gimtoji kalba nėra anglų, turiu lenkiškai ir vokiškai, ir tai iš lietuviškai tu gali paversti truputėlį. Tai ačiū labai visiems, kad atėjot. Aišku, ačiū Henrikui, kad ir Simonai, aišku, ten, kur sėdi ir registruoja visus už visą šitą idėją. Ir man sakė, kalbėti reikia apie langų ir durų restauravimą. Tai apie pačią programą. Tai Vilniaus mieste egzistuoja tokia paveldotvarkos programa, ir viena iš tokių atskirų krypčių yra langų restauravimas ir atkūrimas. Ir didžiausia, atrodo viskas tvarkoja, turim tų pinigų, turim daug užsakymų iš viso miesto, ir didžiausia problema, kad mes neturim meistrų. Tai daugelis meistrų, kurie čia sėdi, žino apie tai, kad mes sakom, mums reikia ne už 2 metų darbų jūsų rankų, ir ne kitais metais, mums reikia šiais metais, nes šiais metais būtent skirtas finansavimas. Ir mes susidurėm su problema, ir akivaizdžia problema, kad neturime meistrų, užaugintų meistrų, arba neturime tokios apimties, tokio kiekio meistrų, kurie galėtų atlikti tuos visus darbus. Tai jau kalbamės, kad iš užsienio atsivešim netgi meistrų, nes Lietuvoje nėra tokios apimties, kad galėtų atlikti. Kad suprasti, tai yra kažkur tai apie 300 20 langų, grubiai, man atrodo, kiek ten Kęstuti?
Nu, mažiau šiek tiek.
Mažiau, 200?
200.
200 langų, kažkur tai apie 30 kažkiek durų. Nu tai čia daug skaitus.
Nu, 200 durų.
200 durų.
Jeigu ten dvigubos varčios.
Nu tai taip, teisingai, dar dvigubas prasideda ir viso kita. Tai kiekis tikrai didelis ir nieks negali, tai va turim Michaelę, kuris šturmuoja duris, turime Henriką, kuris lygiai taip pat daro langus, tai jeigu kas norės prisijungti ir uždirbti pinigus ir lygiai taip pat prisidėti prie miesto gražinimo, tai skambinkit, rašykit, labai mielai, duosim iš karto darbą. Ta prasme, iš karto kitą mėnesį galim jau duoti darbų, kuriuos reikia padaryti. Tai tiek trumpai. Ačiū. Aš išėjau. Kas nors panas suprato? Gerai.
Okay, just a few words about
Vi arbetar som koordinator för byggnadsvård vid
Is it possible to stop this?
Göteborgs universitet. Här ser du dina kontaktuppgifter om du har
Is it possible to take off the sound?
som det kommer att prata om.
Yeah, maybe like this. Yeah. Okay. I work for something called the Craft Laboratory at Gothenburg University, and we're like a national center for knowledge about traditional building crafts and building conservation, also working with landscape and gardening. And we're focusing on blacksmithing, concrete buildings, masonry, dry stone walls, roofing, pine, tar, traditional paints of different types, and wood and timber constructions. And we make films about this, which we have a channel on YouTube. And we also allow craftsmen to come and do research projects, small things, like 2-3 months, where you go deep into things. Here's a guy, he made it about pigmenting tar and cooking tar to make it more long-lasting. And here's another guy, he's doing research on medieval bell towers, on how they were raised, which is quite complicated stuff. And just in the region of our department at the university, there is a bunch of medieval bell towers. And we arrange a lot of seminars, conferences, like today, for craftsmen mainly. And we do hands-on workshops and courses too. I'm rushing through this because just will give the background. Sweden, the situation in Sweden regarding built heritage differs a lot from Lithuania. Hiding up in the north, Sweden was more or less formed in 1200s, and since then we have had no wars within the countries. Small fights with some Danish guys, but overall no big wars like you had or big changes. So that's one of the main conditions for Sweden, the situation in Sweden. And we also had a very late industrial revolution at the end of the 19th century, late 1800s. And then the urbanization took off. People were living in the countryside mostly. Like in 1880, I think there were like 80% living in the countryside. So we have a lot of stuff preserved in the country. We have about 3,900 churches, and 3,000 of them are protected by law, very strong protection. And of these 3,900, 1,400 are medieval, and many of them quite well preserved. We have a lot of like palaces like this. This is the best, of course, most. It's a UNESCO site, the home of the king and queen. We have a lot of manor buildings, both wooden like this or with masonry. And we have a lot of strange building. This is a rope walk for the Navy, built in 1692 to 93 in a Navy base, established in the 1680s. So it's a wooden building, timber frame, 300 meters long, and it's still original. Very interesting. And we have huge number of farm buildings. This is a quite big farm building with 2 houses for living, and there are barns and other type of blacksmiths, granaries. There are hundreds of thousands of those buildings preserved in the country. They were never destroyed by war or something. But we had the wave of demolition in the 50s and 60s and 70s, where they knocked down mainly town centers. Not everywhere, but somewhere. And they started building this type of industrial constructions. So we lost a lot of knowledge in traditional building craft. And people start to protest against this. This is from a demolition in Visby in 1971, where police trying to fight these young people who were protesting. But still, something were destroyed, but a lot were preserved. Like this is old town of Stockholm, and there's just an ordinary wooden farmhouse in the countryside, small, lots of these everywhere. But things regarding modern building preservation, things started to happen in the mid-70s. There was a European Architecture Year, which was a starting point. And another big thing happened. There was an architect restoring this palace built in the 1600s. And he was like introducing the methods we're using today, that do as little as possible, use traditional materials and tools, don't mess with modern materials. And it was like principles, and we're still following this. He wrote an article about this in 1974, still is the guideline for us, I would say. And more important, he made like a book for public people, published first time in 1973, and there are like 10 editions of this at least. So all people who have an old house have bought this book, and there's a lot of hands-on instructions how to preserve and how to use and keep the old building, like window restoration. There are of course like also international like charters that guideline building preservation, but I don't think people follow this. They follow this book or these ideas by this architect introduced around 1970. And one other thing he pointed out that craftsmen are very important in the conservation process. And we've followed this. So today we have a lot of craftsmen doing research in buildings and documentation. And this is a really old church from 1140 with a preserved roof construction. Oh, yeah. So this is like documentation of a craftsman doing investigation of problems. Other things happening there, that we started a new education for conservation officers, like more specialists in conservation. We started an association for building preservation, and we also placed out like specialists on conservation in each county. Then it was 24 regions, now it's less 21. And there was also supported by an environmental movement. People were like more aware about the environment, and I think it helped us in this. But it really started in the mid-90s because we have grants that owners of houses could be. They tripled these grants in the mid-90s. So suddenly there was a big market for doing conservation work. And a little later in 2000, church was separated from state, and the state promised to give a huge grant every year to the church. It's about 45 million euros every year. And they also started gave money for 100 local development projects and groups of craftsmen and builders like Johan and other people, and Björn was involved in the late 90s, started like association for craftsmen and builders specializing in building preservation. We also started a new education in traditional building crafts in 97. So overall, there were many small initiatives taken over time that changed the situation from this bad situation in the 70s to the situation we have today. And I made a little survey 10 years ago, and I identified 1,200 companies involved in building conservation. Then 103 specialized window restorers. And then there are like 300-400 other companies like myself doing window restoration now and then. And there were like 55 material producers, 50 shops selling spare parts for owners. They can go and buy paint, old glass, new glass, hinges, tool machines for removal of paint. And these are really important because it makes it easy for people to find it. stuff needed. So yeah, there are a lot of people. I think nowadays, this was made 10 years ago. Now we're maybe 1,500 companies in this field. And 10 years ago almost, we started a national branch organization. 9 of these regional organizations for companies collaborate. So into a national collaboration, and there's about 300 companies plus connected to this. Yeah, this is inside this rope walk, by the way. And now, landing window restoration, with Johan soon will start talking about. It was a small family business in the mid-80s or late 80s who like invented a method. Instead of a carpenter doing the wood repair and the painter doing the painting or the glazer doing the glazing, they put all these parts of craft into one profession, doing all of things. And as I said, there are like at least 100 companies doing mainly window restoration. And I think everybody works according to the same principle, more or less, that don't change the construction, do wood surgery to repair, complete or add on damaged metalware with new or old part replicas or old one. Use mouth-blown glass if the windows are older than from 1930. Use linseed oil and linseed oil coating. I think more or less people follow this, I would say. But now Johan will go into more detail. And Johan has been a window restorer since 1990, so 35 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he will explain the method we're using.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
How many have done a window restoration here? 3, 4. And lots of just a handful. I made the window restoration here. First I must say this is the first time I have a presentation of how to make a window restoration in English. So, I have chosen English, not the English for window restoration. It's a lot of new words, tools and all the different materials and so on. So I hope you understand me. Well, Johan Lindholm, that's my name. I have a company, Svenska Glasstudion, a Swedish glass studio. I was trained, Albert, that was a small family company in South Sweden, had education 1990. So it's 35 years I worked with oak windows. My first name was the city where I live, Uppsala, fönsterhantverk, window handcraft. But I changed name 2017 because now I mostly work with glass for old windows, all kind of glass for old windows. And this is some association Henrik talked about, a member there. Well, window materials, this is a problem. It's a lots of different materials in a window. You have wood, glass, metal, putty, painting, and nowadays also lots of plastic things. And all of them must work together. And I only will show you step by step how window handcraft man in Sweden work. First step is to clean the glass have old window because when you use infrared light to heat up the putty, the infrared light absorbing in the dirty glass, so it becomes too hot. So it's dangerous, more dangerous if you don't clean the glass. If it's clean, the infrared light going during the glass, so it be not so hot. It's very important. And Birger maybe talk more of that.
Yes.
The first thing is to save the glass, and you have different way to how you can do it. Putty lamp, that was a special tool machine of this small family company constructed. I don't know it's still produced, going up and down.
No.
No. Well, we don't talk so much.
I have one out in the workshop.
Oh yeah.
But you have to.
We come. There is a putty lamp, and this is only for the putty, not to remove painting. Gas speed heater, and that's Birger talking about all the kind of machines from speed heater later on here. Putty shields, roting, if it goes very fast, roting, but that's most dangerous for the glass. And the last one is snap-off blade or knife if the putty is plastic. You must cut the plastic putty away. And here we have shields. Pronounced shields.
Chisel.
Shields.
Chisel.
And the important thing is that wheel, so you don't go down in the glass with the shields. And it's very good tool if you will just complicate the putty. Or the putty is good, and in the bottom maybe it's bad, and it's very easy to complicate the putty. Sometimes you don't need to make all these steps, but this is the total way. And of course you scrap all it's very important to remove all putty, because the glass is easy to break. And of course you have also the pins. It's important to remove. And if you haven't made a good job, you can be very careful and put the glass out of the frame. And now we are coming to Björn's area. Have the word metal wire instead of. I hadn't found the right English word for this.
Okay.
But you understand. The problem is the screw here, and usually must use lots of heat, hot air, speed heater, or if it's easy, you can only use a screwdriver. And this moment it's say most important you have good ventilation, because you heat it so much, you burn up the painting here. Yeah, you see it's I've been very hot, and here it's not the important things you can grab the screw. You don't need to screw up the whole one. Easiest way. Yeah. The glass is gone, the metal work is gone, and now the painting. And usually it's maybe in the bottom it's linseed oil paint, and you have plastic, and linseed oil, and alkyl oil. It's a mixed with different painting. Hot air, infrared speed heater, and you can also use chemical way. But it's not to recommend, because it's very easy to have chemicals still in the wood when you will paint. Yeah, you don't know how it's, if it be good with linseed oil, the painting. So hot air or speed heater, that's the best way. Okay, you can grind also, but it's problem with air and dust cleaner, and I think this, and you have a good ventilation, that's the easiest way, absolutely best for the wood. Well, it's the same here. That's a speed heater, and when all painting is gone, you use sandpaper to have a good finish for the painting. And when it's older windows, of course, sometimes you can find rotten pieces, and you don't need to make a whole new frame. Usually you don't need it. And of course often it's the bottom, or there is screw with, the corner maybe. Yeah, and you can make new wood. You may repair only partial woodwork. You don't need to change the whole one often. And it's important to repair with good wood. So you must select what kind of wood you repair. And now it's going back to build up the window again. Impregnate the wood. It can be a raw linseed oil or half oil, we say in Sweden. That's 50% balsam turpentine, and 50% boiled linseed oil. That we call half oil in Sweden. And the fittings here, metal works. If you have rust outside the fittings, you can be sure you have lots of more rust inside it. And you can use a wire brush to yes, it's a problem to get all rust away with a brush. The best thing is to sandblast the metal work. But okay, all of us don't have any sandblast. And if it's very terrible, I call Björn, who have all metal works. And this is an important thing, to paint anti-rust, painting under the metal works. And don't fill it up with putty or something like that. This is more important to paint the backside or inside. Well, and yes, this is the next step. Refit the fittings and use the right screw. So don't use torques and stars and what you
Use slotted screws.
Oh, Björn had it. It's not so easy to find. I must say it's impossible to find without you.
And why use slotted screws? Yes, next time you restore the window, it's much easier to remove the paint in the slots than in a cross recess or a torx recess. So it's important to use slotted screws.
And all of us see use wrong screw in the metal works, I'm sure. If your wood is good, you can go the easy way and take a little bit longer screw. Usually they are really short. And of course, rust painting also have to screw. This is the first place where rust is coming back if you don't paint the screw. Well, now we are coming to the glazer. You clean the original glass. Check if it's have the right size. If I cut a new glass, I say a total 3 millimeter shorter than, so you have little bit space around the glass. So check all glass, so it's easy to yes, so it's you haven't so much space around it. And of course, you must complete the original glass with new mouth-blowing glass, and Peter is talking about it later here. And Glashutte Lamberts have all kind of mouth-blowing glass, so it's no problem to find the right glass.
You typically choose, if there is mouth-blown glass, you add other new maybe mouth-blown glass, so you have all of the same type. You don't mix with rolled glass or float glass.
No. So when you made a window restoration like this, use right glass in all pieces of glass, because if you have a float glass here, it's totally dead in that glass, both from the outside and inside. And this is okay. Mouth-blowing glass cost money, but when you make a restoration like this, the glass is cheap if you see how much, lots of hours you work with the frame. So don't be scared about the price, because you may do a very big job. But the glass is just some percent of the price of the glass, of the whole window restoration. Ja, apply the putty. Yes, the oil putty is, you can find lots of different putty, and the absolute most of them is some mix of plastic. You can find other putty with other oil, but no, linseed oil is the best one and easy to remove next time you will make a restoration of the windows. And yeah, linseed oil is really good also for your health. The plastic, I say, okay, linseed oil putty, it can, if you, well, the birds maybe can eat it, but it's not often.
Pigeons like it.
What?
Pigeons like it.
Yeah, I say that's a natural product because birds will eat it. But it's happened in my 35 years, 10 times, maybe, maximum. And it's at the autumn when the birds will eat and yes, it's the oil they want to eat for the winter. Not about the birds. Use linseed oil putty and a putty knife. And you see, you put the putty in the bottom, under the glass. That's also important. Especially when you have mouth-lowered glass, so the whole glass have putty around, so most safe the way to place it, you say so. Well, after that you rub down the glass, and putty is, you see, it's overall, but it's important you fill up, so you don't see the wood. Rub it to the bottom, and after that you have, usually traditional, you have pins, so the small nails to fix the glass, but nowadays we use staple gun. It's much safer for the glass and much quicker. Well, you have a glass in the frame, and now you have the putty outside the glass, and shape it with a knife, and the knife must be really clean. If it's dirty, it's impossible to get good finish of a putty. Well, there's only one thing left, and that's the painting. And here, Vibo Färg, talk about linseed oil later, so this is yeah, you use diluted linseed oil, and you usually some turpentine. It's very important to this painting be very dry. It takes 2 days, maybe, around. So you can use sandpaper because the wood maybe it's a little bit rough. Yeah.
Do you have to wait after the party before you paint? Or can you paint right on the...
It has been a big discussion in Sweden. This party I use, they say you shall paint directly or wait 2 weeks. The party, the linseed oil party is not so different from the linseed oil paint, but it's the same mix. But you have linseed oil in both of them. So that's the reason you can paint directly. If you wait 2 weeks and the party have a skin, okay, you can use other kind of paintings. But it's, yes, we paint, if you paint directly, maybe you have some scratchings from the brusher. So you've been very light at the hand when you paint it directly, but it's possible, yeah. But it takes longer time than at the party to get dry. And if you have a hole in the wood and so on, and a corner here, and you use the same putty as you have around the glass. All right. It's lost one. No.
A few minutes, like.
Yeah. Well, this is the end. You clean the glass, of course, and the easiest way is with mixed. First step is ethanol, and after that you use only the glass cleaning that you can buy everywhere. And you use ethanol because you have lots of linseed oil from the partner hail. It's terrible. Yeah, that's the whole process.
So you use two times, you paint 2 times, intermediate and final painting, yeah?
From the start to beginning, to stop. How long time or?
No. But you paint how many times?
Oh,
1 time or?
First dilute it, after that twice.
Twice.
Yeah.
So 3 in total.
3 total, yeah. Often.
3, so you paint only body, yeah?
Yeah.
And then paint the frame and final.
Yeah, everything, you paint everything 3 times, you can say. Yeah.
I think there will be more discussions after lunch about these details. I think there are lots of opinions how to do or questions. So, but you have the chance to do it in smaller groups and discuss with everybody. Will pass you on during the afternoon. Thank you. Okay, next to talk is Birger, who invented this infrared speed heater for paint removing. Can you tell your story?
Thank you. Henrik asked me to come here and talk about the background of my invention. And it was so that in the 80s, I was renovating old buildings, the outside, the facade. I had in my company, which I built up, I had 22 bricklayers and plaster workers. And today when I go to Gothenburg, wherever I am, I can see a house which we have been restoring. And from time to time, we came into the problem of removing paint. And the bricklayers and the plaster workers said, no, we don't do that. That's messy, it's dangerous, and we don't want to do it. So I had to do it myself. And at that time, we mainly used methylene chloride. Do you know what that is? It's a very, very strong solvent. And I worked with that for quite a long time. And before I started to work with it, I never got angry. I was a very, very calm person. And actually my wife got angry at me because I never got angry. And then after working with this for some time, I realized that I started to change as a person. I could suddenly become extremely angry for almost nothing. And I realized that I became a different person. And it took some time to realize that. The start for it was one morning I came to a building and I should put on the chemicals. I opened the tin, it was a big 20-kilo tin with this chemical, and it smelled extremely strong. And I opened the tin and it smelled like apple. And I said, wow, how nice. How can they manage to produce this? It tastes like, it smells like apple. So, well, I put it on, and at that time I used, you spray, when you spray paint, I sprayed the chemicals on. What I didn't know at that time, I had a gas mask and rain clothes. The problem was that the solvent penetrated the rain clothes right into the body. And no one knew about that at that time. And then I had put on the chemicals, and I went into the cabin we had to bring a cup of coffee, because I had to wait for several hours before I could take down the paint. And I poured up a cup of coffee and tasted it, and it tasted like menthol. You know what menthol is? Mm-hmm. Extremely strong smell. And everything I eat and smelled for a long time tasted menthol. It was extremely unnice. And then I started to wash down the chemicals and the paint, and we did that with 100 degrees hot water. What I didn't know that, and what no one knew at that time, was when we did that, we made the kind of gas, the same kind of nerve gas which was used in the First World War. And so no, it was not a big question that you get sick of this. And when I went to a doctor and asked him, what is this? Because I went to the chemical company and said that this has happened to me, what is this? And they said, no, it's not dangerous at all. Look here at these papers, we have been doing tests. It's not dangerous at all. The test they did was they put a pencil and put on the chemicals, and then they washed it down with cold water. But to be able to do this in real life, in big surfaces, we had to spray it on, and then we had to clean it off with 100 degrees hot water. And when I went to the doctor, I started to investigate, because I didn't trust the chemical company. So I went to people who knew about this, and I found a doctor, and he knew, and he said, okay, you shall be happy. I was 30 years old at that time. I just got my first child, and the doctor said that you shall be very happy if you will survive your 50th birthday, because this is extremely dangerous. So I stopped doing that. I got extremely angry. You know, the chemicals made it possible for me to be angry.
And I was happy.
Pardon?
Your wife was happy. Because you became angry.
I come to that later. Anyway, I got really angry, and I said to myself, I have to solve the problem with removing paint without doing any harm to the underneath surface or to the wood. That was the first thing. The second thing was it should not be dangerous, neither for us or for the environment. And 3, anyone should be able to work with this without any knowledge. I should give the knowledge to the people who wanted to use it. And then I started to investigate. I tested many different things. And then I found out infrared. And then I started to work together with Chalmers, the technical high school in Gothenburg, to see why is this working. And the technical high school, I had glass bulbs, and they are very breakable. And they said, no, you should do it in the other way. And it turned out that we needed 50% more energy, and it took very much longer time. And the surface was much hotter. So we started to find out what is it. And then we discovered that infrared light, you have short wave, middle wave, and long wave. And in each area, there are millions of different wavelengths. There is only one wavelength where all paint and water reacts. And when you hit that wavelength, you only need about 110 to 130 degrees to remove the paint, compared to a heat gun, which needs about 400 degrees. And you know, the most dangerous thing in old paint is lead. And lead starts to evaporate at 360 degrees. So when you use a heat gun, you always evaporate lead. But we have done investigations in Sweden with 2 different institutes, and also in America with 2 different institutes, and to find out what is happening when we are heating the paint. Is anything dangerous coming out of it? But it is not. So if we measure the amount of lead which you are allowed to work in, I don't know the word for it, but we can say you're allowed to work 8 hours a day in your whole working life up to this level. We call it 100%. With the worst tests we done in the US and Sweden, we come to 10%, which is very, very low. So it's not dangerous, even when it's smelling, if you use the tool in the right way. So, well, I started to develop a heater which had all these different things to work in the right way. And then I had the first speed heater. It was about this big, weighed 16 kilos, and everyone called me idiot, even my former wife. And everyone said, "You're crazy. No one will start to work with this. No one will think that you can work with remove paint from a whole house with a tool which is about this size. It's too small." today, this is the one which sell most of. We sell many thousands every year. This is more efficient than the one who weighs 16 kilos, and this is 0.6 kilos. And I came out sometimes to whole buildings, and people are standing removing paint with this small tool, and it's actually very fast. It heats, it softens the paints in about 1 to 3 seconds, and then you can scrape it off without being sick. And you can remove putty and paint from windows without cracking the glass, if you do it in the right way. Henrik is laughing because he just cracked the window, but so of course you can do that. But that is a story about the background of Speed Eater. And all my 22 workers, bricklayers, plaster workers, my working leader, and I was a very good friend, and he also called me an idiot, and all of them called me idiot. And today we are selling to 28 countries around the world, and in October I was in Savannah in USA on an exhibition, and there was a big area where Savannah, the city, owned this area, and they have a big working place to collect old building material and restoring them and reuse them in the city. And the first day I walked around, and I saw on several places people working with my tools. And I said, yes, I don't think I'm an idiot at all. So that's a story about Speed Eater. And well, you will see how it works later after when we go to practice these things. So, and I had brochures, things in both German and English, if you want. And as always, I leave my business card. I forget them in the office, and it happens all the time. So I'm sorry I don't have it, but I have brochures, and you can always find me on internet and on our website. So that's the story about Speed Eater. Do you have any questions?
What's the price for the...
That is a good question. I have a price list out there, so you will see it. This one, we have today 3 small units and 2 bigger. And this is about 3,500 Swedish crowns. That's about 300 yes, euros. And it lasts for a very long time. It took me 4 years to develop this one. And when we started to produce it, we put it on the floor and put it on like this. And in the beginning, it was burning for 380 hours. Then I put a goal for 3,000 hours. And today it burns for 5,000 hours. And you can always repair it. Because we are building everything in my factory in Sweden. So when you break it or so, it's no problem to fix it. And I don't think we sell anything here to this country, but we sell to Estonia. So if we find someone who wants to sell our products here, he or she is most welcome.
But it's possible to order?
Oh yes, you can order from us in Sweden, no problem. We ship it.
I have a question. Is it a good idea to use this speed machine for varnish removal?
Yes. It is. To remove varnish is the easiest thing you can use this one for. So it is very much used on old wooden boats, the varnish and so on. There is a Finnish influencer called Jani, Classic Yachts, I think his website is. He's using our tools very, very much.
Can you use it for chemical paints or only for natural-based paints?
You can use it for almost all kinds of paint on wood. But if you have plastic paint right on the wood, you put raw linseed oil on top of the plastic paint, let it be there for a couple of hours, because you know when plastic paint dries, it dries with the water going out, and then it creates small channels. And if you put raw linseed oil, the oil penetrates into these small channels, and if you wait then a couple of hours, it's quite easy to remove the paint. And also very, very old, dried out oil paint, then you apply raw linseed oil on top of it, let it be there for a couple of hours, and it's much easier to remove it. So, okay. No more questions?
Maybe what about layers of paint, about several layers and a lot of layers of paint? Is it theoretically possible to save the bottom layer?
The most we have tested, because we were in a paint shop in Stockholm, and they asked the same question, how many layers? And I said, I don't know, because mainly it is easier when it is thicker layers, more layers. And then they came out with a piece of a window frame from NK, the shop in Stockholm, and they painted it 90 times, and all the paint came off.
But I think the question was that is it possible to save, spare?
Oh, sorry, I misunderstood. I usually say no, because that is the safest way. I know some craftsmen manage to do that, but you might be able to do it, but I say mostly no. Then if you want to remove just one layer at a time, then it's chemicals, I would say, is the best, or dry scraping. Okay?
I would like to ask, did you try it on the ceramic layers, which is painted ceramic?
Yes, it works also then. But then it's very often plastic paint. So put raw.
And in this box is the glass, and from this they take it out. And when I do a tour in our company, I always say, when we could have a time machine, we could send our glass makers 200, 300 years back in time, and they could start working immediately, because they do it the same way they did it 200, 300 years before. The only tool they work with is the glassmaker's pipe, a long rod of metal where they blow the glass, and the process is still the same. There is nothing different. The only difference is in the furnaces, because in the past times they used charcoal to heat the furnaces. Today we use gas, of course. So here the ingredients again, sand, lime and soda. If we melt this together, we have such a glass, transparent window glass. We don't produce only window glass, we produce also colored glass, which is used for vitrage, for stained glass in churches, contemporary and in historic style renovation, so in both ways. So the restoration even decreases slowly a little bit, and the contemporary goes a little bit up, which is good for us, so that today designers and artists still went to in this glass as medium for their work. So they don't use only I don't know, paint or whatever. So they also use glass for their works, artistic works, art pieces. And for the color, we have to add several oxides, cobalt oxide to make it blue, iron to make it green, and so there's, it's kind of a recipe book of thousands of colors. These are our people, and 70 people all in all, so it's quite a serious company. And so this is me without beard. Okay, there is this big book from, I forgot the French name, durů, and he wrote 700 something, a very big book about the history at that time. So he wrote about all the different crafts and the life at that time, and it's really a thick book, very interesting book, and it shows how people were working. And here this is a Rapierung, I don't have the English word, of the work at that time, and when you compare it with our work, you see they had these cylinders, they treated it, it's the same as we do it today. Here you can see a kind of action photo where this, I'll make maybe just quick to explain. So we talked about the glass makers with the glass rod. We have a team of 4 people which produces such a cylinder. And the first one starts with a small amount on the glassmaker's pipe. The second colleague takes this pipe, take a bigger amount on this pipe, make it even bigger. Then it goes to the master, and the master starts blowing this bubble. This bubble becomes a balloon, and this balloon is opened on either side, and so then we have a cylinder. This cylinder is cut and reheated again, so the glass gets soft again, and then they open this cylinder to a sheet of glass. And this is the way how they made glass for hundreds of years in the past. And this is a stage, between where the glass master just enlarges this balloon so that it's getting a bit bigger and bigger. And here is a glimpse into this furnace where the cylinder is going to be stretched. So here the cylinder still is round, and he takes it over to on a table. There is a little bit hotter temperature, and then it gets soft and he opens it. And this is a product of us. So you see this lively surface of the glass, because when it's handmade, it cannot be perfectly even, so there is always a little bit movement in the glass, and this is what it is at least about. So this is how a historic window glass looked like and still look. And as we do everything individually, Johan also talked a little bit about it, that we are able to match the existing windows. So over the different time periods, the glass became always, I don't like this word, but it became perfect, more perfect. So in the 500 years ago, it was very rough, very bubble and greenish, because there were kind of dirt in the sand, and as time went by, it became more and more clean, more and more white, and more plain. And we can match this. So if we have a glass from 1600, which is a little bit more rough, then we have glass in our warehouses which match to this, because we make the rougher glasses, we make the smoother glasses, so we can match everything what is needed. Yeah, this is the table cathedral. This was used in the Jugendstilzeit, Art Nouveau. So in general, we do not do only the mouth-blown glasses, we try to concentrate on any historic glass which was made in the past. So also this is slab glass. I know in Lithuania are some churches with windows of this concrete glass. So you know what stained glass is? Stained glass is a colored vitrage, is a colored glass with this LED wires between. And here we have thicker slabs with 2.5 centimeter, and there the Verbindungselement. What the LED does here the concrete. So it's a complete elements. They are hardening of the table, and when the concrete is dry and hard, they put this element completely in the window to, yeah. But it came a little bit out of fashion. But I know that there was a Lithuanian artist who did some important churches here. For example, this is a example of one of the very first concrete churches. It was 1930 in Beringen, Belgium. And so in this renovation, every single piece was photographed, and the bad ones were replaced, and we did it after the photo. So really, this is the reason why they stand so precisely in front. And he has this tool to make these marks in the glass as it was before. Yeah, this is something from our other work, so not window, but vitrage, in a contemporary way. So it's, as I said, it's not only good for restoration of old churches with LED wiring, so it also can be done in a contemporary way. And here we are at now some examples of window glass. So, of course, the window glass is not so exciting like the color glass, because it's just plain, but we have it in several buildings all over the world. And what you see here is this crackle. And if you would have asked us 10 years before if we can do insulation glass, we said no, we cannot. If you had asked us if can you do safety glass, either this toughened glass or this double layer safety glass, we also would have said no. But meanwhile, we found some partners who are capable of doing this. So that means you can have today our glass in insulation units. So you have insulation as it's requested for the nowadays comfort. And also safety. In public buildings, you cannot do anything without safety meanwhile. And you can harden our glass to safety glass, even either the single layer or the double layer glass. Or I think who comes later with this energy, you can laminate it together. You can laminate our glass on such energy efficient glass, and then you have a double effort. Yeah, this is one of the in history later glasses, because they are more smooth. Can be cut like any other glass. Contemplation. So, and it's ready. So. This is here in Walsassen, town hall, yeah, with our glass. And you see there's sometimes photos show it better, sometimes not. And, in churches, they have this so-called Schutzverglasung, covering glass. There is the vitrage behind, and it should be covered, protected against weather and so on. And so sometimes they just put plain glasses in front of this. And when you have a mouth-blown glass, you believe it or not, you can see the vitrage better behind if you have you had an industrial glass. Because of this waviness, you always have a spot where you can look through, where there is no reflection. So, very famous Hofkirche in Dresden. This is made in safety glass. This is a lamination glass. I was talking about dirty glass some minutes ago. Main part of the glass is sand, and in the past they used the sand at the place where they had this little factory, and they used the sand they had, which mostly was spoiled with some dirt, and the main thing is iron. Iron makes the glass green, and when you have a sheet of glass and you look inside the edge, you always see such a greenish tint. And depending how clean this sand was, so the less green the glass was. And if we have to match a historic window, which is maybe 300 years old, which has such a green tint, then we can color it with our oxides. Also here we can match really the color as the original was before. And this is in fact the range. They also have this green, yellowish green or bluish green. So it depends where the glass factory was, which sand that they used, and so the glass just had a different color. We are a producer of, let's say, 3 types of glass. We have the color glass, we have the window glass, and we have 2 technical glasses, which are UV filtering glass or IR filtering glass. So IR, infrared filtering, or UV, ultraviolet filtering glass. So maybe for museums this is very interesting, because in museums are objects shown, silk wallpaper, drawings, whatever, which suffers from UV light, and so you can use this UV glass in the window to protect what is inside. And this is a technique which is known since decades already, but they use a film between. They make a sandwich layer, and between is a film, and this film has the task to protect this UV rays. And but the problem is this film suffers from his own function. So that means UV damages this film, and after 15 years you have to replace it, because this film is rotten at least. And in the glass, this technique stays. It's the same if you have a blue glass and you dig it for 2,000 years, you take this glass out, it's still a blue glass. And it's the same with our UV glass. This function of UV glass is in the chemical structure, in a molecular structure, and so this filtering effect stays forever. Here again, a historical comparison between classic work and modern work. This type of making glass was invented in the late 18th century, because before they were glass blowing like here on the floor, but when you blow a balloon on the floor, it has maybe only this size. And as time went by, people of course want everything bigger, and so they were thinking, how can we make these cylinders bigger, and they invented this technique to swing it in front such a pit, and with this the balloon gets longer and the size of the glass in the end gets bigger. Here just another photo of a vitrage of something colorful, even here with mirrored color sample. So, and it's not always windows what we are talking about. We are also talking about clocks. So we replaced, for example, and this is one of our real highlights in the world, because I think the Big Ben is, if you have 10 monuments in the world, the most important 10 monuments, he always will be among this list of 10. And so here we replaced the glass for the clock tower of the Big Ben. And of course, you know, it's a very important piece, and very many people were involved, restoration specialists and from the government and so on. And there were, a colleague of mine was there, and they were discussing about the color and how should it be, and it was long and exhausting discussions, and that at least they were talking about 50 shades of white. But finally we succeeded. So I thank you for your attention. Later on I will be on this rotation table, and there I have some glass samples and some brochures, and I would be happy to meet you there, to talk, to discuss, and yeah, to bring handmade glass to you.
Maybe some questions?
Any questions?
How big panel?
Sorry?
How big panel can you?
How big? Okay. I talked to a carpenter somewhere, and he told me, why are in our farmhouses the beams 5 meters? Mostly plus minus. Because it is a human size. 2 men can move such a beam. And we also do human sizes. We do what a human can do. And we have these 2 types of glass. This one which is blown on the floor. Here we have 60 by 90 centimeter. And you saw this bit. Here we have 85 by 100 roughly. This is the biggest what we can do. We can, of course, we are always, as I said, people always want it bigger. And sometimes we try to get a little oversized, maybe 1 meter and 10, but we really can do in one shift 3-4 pieces every day, and then he returns to his regular size, because if we would do one shift completely, maybe 1 week long, then he get problem with, so it's really, so this is what we really recognize, and so we do it, that people can do it during their whole life. So, and people are always asking, how old does a glassmaker get, and does he retire? When stop he work with 50 already? Or we have some people really till 65. They were here at the furnace working, and they retired at that age, and they still can do this work. Although it's exhausting work, hard work, sweat, and if you like, we need people.
Do you have in your staff women who are blowing?
This is also an interesting question. So one time I had a woman which was a little bit feminist, and they say, I see no woman here. And I said, well, it's a very heavy work and very physical, and then I got a storm. And then I said, you can do it. You can start immediately. And yeah, it's a matter of fact that men usually are physically a little bit stronger. But we have an apprentice now. She wants to work in our factory. We told about everything, and she said, no, I want, and I will try and won't try. And so we have anyway. You saw the photo. We have only 2 women in the company. Now we have 3, and the others are not in the production. But this is the first woman in the production. Yeah.
What about the thicknesses?
Thickness is usually 2 to 3 millimeter, but this matches the history. So also, sometimes they had even 1 millimeter thin glass in the past. Yeah.
One question. We talk about like clear glass.
Yeah.
Can you did the like lens, because some glass is like lens to the light is going.
You mean a bent glass,
Yeah.
or you mean a lens like in the microscope? No. You meant bent.
Yes.
Our glass can be bent after our blowing process, if you like. So you can put it on a mold, heat it up, and it's going down on this mold. This is possible.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah.
You made it for some client.
Yeah. True. Yes. Yeah.
Technical question. Do you do this process just to get this effect of old glass, I mean original glass? You told, because as I understand, you can make a plate of glass by pouring it on flat surface, right?
Yeah.
But then you don't get this ripple effect, right? Or other reasons why do you do cylinder and then open it?
Then, in the past, if I get asked this question from time to time, and why didn't they do it in a different way? Because it was the only possible way to do it at that time. It was a clever thing to blow a cylinder and later open it. But if you would like to have a bigger sheet of glass, you always need some technique. As you say, such a rolling table. You pour the glass on a table and you roll over it, and then you also can produce a sheet of glass. And they did it, you know, in Versailles, the mirrors, they are very famous, and they are made of such a thick casted glass. On a table they casted glass, and then they were grinding and polishing this glass on both sides, so that it had nearly the appearance of such an industrial float glass, and then they put mirror on it. But this takes a lot of effort, because these casted glasses, they have this ripple effect, and you really cannot look through. And and it's all up and down in the history of glass. I still do not understand everything, because there is I have the time, yes? Okay. There is. I was in Croatia, in Split, and there was an archaeological digging. They found, it was dated to 400, 450 after Christ, Anno Domini. And they found glass there where they said, this is cylinder glass. Never believe an archaeologist, he was not there at the time, but they say it might have been, and there were some people who judged it and say, yes, this is cylinder glass. And then I asked myself, why was, for example, in Venice, if you have been to Venice, you see these palaces, these Renaissance palaces, 1,500 Anno Domini. There they have only this roundel, this is round glass. When they invented 1,000 years before this cylinder glass technique, where you can make bigger glasses, why did they come back to this roundel? I do not understand, and nobody could answer this question to me so far. So, because knowledge was forgotten and reinvented. This is maybe the matter of fact.
Can this mouth-blown glass be tempered?
Yes, of course. We have, when this cylinder is opened, it goes to a special furnace where it's slowly annealed, because it's a technical matter that you have to anneal, cool down glass slowly, because otherwise it's getting tension. And you cannot cut it like you saw with my colleague before. Then it does what it was, and was it what it wanted, and so it's necessary to cool it thoroughly. And the thicker, the longer.
Yeah, one more question. Maybe you'll show it with examples. It's going to be better, but it would be really interesting and useful for us people who go and talk with heritage owners, just to just about the impurities. All we can see actually that that's old glass, and but the waving is very different actually from one church to another, and the bubbles and the lines and all the imperfections. So if you could give some hints about, especially about the maybe one can tell it's really not the beginning of 20th century, it must be older. So that in that case, we would strongly suggest to save the particular glass if we knew some kind of such details. So I know that we need examples for this, not just about.
And this is a very important thing, because sometimes people come and complain. Oh, there's a bubble in the glass. I do not want. I want to complain. This is a typical sign of having a handmade glass. You say these lines, we call it rimis, when some a schliere. Sometimes it's such a line. This is the way as we do it. It's happening. You cannot avoid it. So and it's a typical. And this is now I'm missionary man in this case, and I need more than you who understands this to bring it to the people, because glass is the only building material which is recognizable from both sides of the building. You have this floor. I see only this floor. I see the roof. I see only the roof from outside. I see the window. I see it from here, inside out, and say from outside inside. So and why forget people or do not recognize that that it's necessary to have the real glass, because it's something speaking, talking. It's a talking material in a certain way.
Is it possible to date more or less the glass? Are there any methods?
You can, with the smoothness, you can date a little bit. The smoother, the younger the glasses are. But you cannot say, here are bubbles, here are no bubbles, this is older. This is what you cannot say. With this Wald glass, forest glass, with this green tint, which I explained, there you can judge a little bit that you know this must be older. But you cannot say, is it 250 or 350, directly from the glass. So it can have been replaced in between, of course. But you see, when it's more seedy, when there are the small bubbles in the glass, then it's definitely older, because they had the technique as time went by to get these bubbles out of the glass. So, but we judges, we look at the glass and see it looks like this, and then we make it like this. So, no matter how old it is.
Okay, thank you, Peter.
Thank you, Achulabi.
Little gift. There will be more chance to discuss with you after lunch.
Of course.
And we continue with glass, but in another aspect. I think, as I understood it here, it's quite popular, but people are very focusing on the inner energy efficiency. So it's quite common to, even if you keep the old window, replace the inner sash, make it a little new one, a little bigger, and put glass packets inside. We typically not doing this in Sweden. No, we typically keep the old glass, don't we? But there is a solution of this low emission glass, and you will say a little about this.
I should talk about the low emission glass. Now Peter have described everything Lambert can do, and it's really, really good. You have so much different projects, because when you have a restoration of a window, usually you got modern rules. You must have better insulation. It can be fire, it can be safety glass, and yes, you will have a better window for a modern life. And usually the best way is to have both lower glass in the outside frame, and all modern
Demands, or?
Demands, yes. You have it in the inside frame, this one. Is it sun or loud or better isolation? Everything is in the inside frame. And you can mix with insulating glass. You have two glass and the metal frame in middle of it to get better isolation. But it's a very important thing when you work with old windows, and you will have a better window. You forgot how heavy it's been with new modern glass. If you have insulation glass in this inner frame, in the beginning it was 2 millimeter glass, and if you have insulating glass, you have 8 millimeter. It's so much heavier. So you have problem with the metal works and everything. So in Sweden, it's very popular to use this low emission glass, LE glass. In Sweden, we call it energy glass. This is a float glass. They have coated with metal, and this is around 35–40% better isolating instead of this only float glass without coating. So it's a very easy way to have a better window for isolating. Well, this glass can be, the coating can be a hard coat or a soft coat. You can find both of them, but the soft coat is a better isolator. But the problem is you must have it in insulating glass because it's so easy to destroy the coat, the soft one. So if you have a single glass like this, you must have a hard coat. Instead, this is so hard, so you can't have a putty knife with metal, or you have a ring. It's very easy to scratch it. But you don't destroy the coating because it's so hard. So you see the scratch is from the gold from a ring or steel from a putty knife. So when you use the putty around energy glass, it's a good idea to use something plastic putty knife. But you can clean it as a normal glass. That's no problem, but you can't use any metal of it. You can also find this energy glass polished or unpolished. They polish the surface of the coating. So it's been easier to clean. Unpolished, it's, yeah, you understand. It's very easy to get dirty and you must clean it often. Yeah, when you use this glass, you put the coating. The coating should be looking outside, not inside. Because yes, it's if you heavy coating to the inside, you got condense, dump, water at the glass. But if you put it right, you have the right function. So it's different frequency, the waves of the heating outside from the sun. You have one frequency from the sun, but from the inside you have a different frequency, and that's the reason you can get more warm in instead of out from the glass. So you have a coating outside, so when you restoration the window, you put it up, and here you have a pattern. You need something like this. It's a small tool, for you can't, if you're super professional, you can feel what side the coating is. But it's metal, so on that one side, you have a lamp there. So this side is up when you have a pattern around it.
So it's out, pointing out.
Yes, it's bring out. That's important. Yeah.
So you think it's a good compromise to use this?
Yes, this is, I think it's a really good compromise. Yeah, this one in the inside frame, and you have a mouth blowing glass in the outside frame, because you have, from the outside you see the mouth blowing glass, you can see this. So you have a reflection of the outside, and when you are looking at it from inside, you still see the mouth blowing glass. Yeah. It has a little bit color, this coating. Can you see it? Yeah. A little bit gray gold. But if you have this glass everywhere, you can't see it. So near the clear float. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I can also say, if you change, you have windows and you change to this glass. Often I got the question, how many years must I have to get the money back? It costs to change to this glass. And for a regular house in Sweden, we talk about 8-10 years. So after that, it's payback time, yes. That's a good idea.
I think this is a good solution to convince people who are like expecting like the windows to be super perfect. Because people think that if you replace the windows with modern ones, then the house will be warm. But it's not like this, because I've seen research, it's about 17% of the energy losses go through windows. So you still have 83% going somewhere else. So I think it's better to focus on other things like insulating ceiling or roof, or having a efficient, like a heat pump to heat the house to save energy, than doing things like this. But if people are insisting, this is the solution.
Yeah.
But another solution is to not to do this. It's just to keep the old inner sash with this original glass too. One of the universities in Sweden made a research already like 27 years ago, and they found out that if you maintain an old window like this, where it's quite a big distance between inner sash and outer sash, it's as efficient as like a modern window from the 90s or something with glass packets. It's not as efficient as these super efficient modern windows you can buy, the best today, but it's as good as like a packet window from the 90s. Because of this huge volume of air kept in between the frames. So it's not bad to keep it.
Yeah.
But with this, it gets even a little better.
Absolutely. This window, these are really good for isolation. The worst window is a window from Funkis.
1940s or
40s, yeah. You have only two glass, one in frame and one in the outside frame, and no screws. What do you call it? This one.
Wooden profile.
You don't have this one. That's the worst window if you look at how good U value you have.
Energy value,
Yeah, and that's around 2.8, and if you change to this glass, 1.8, 1.9. So it's very easy way to get better window. And this energy coating, you can laminate it for security glass and for loud. You can use it everywhere.
And the best thing I think is with using this, you could keep the old inner sash. You don't have to rip it and throw it away and make a new one. So it's better preservation. Okay.
That's about that.
Yeah, you have the chance to talk more about this later with you on. So maybe save questions for that and continue with linseed oil paint.
Yeah.
That's your subject.
Perfect.
Yeah.
You have wrap this up? So, okay everyone, really nice to be here. My name is Klaus, and I'm representing the company Libo Färg. Färg is a Swedish word for paint. And I'm here today with my father. We're going to be standing on the workshop session later on. So he's the second generation, and I'm the third generation actually. So we have our location, our production in Gothenburg, with this really harsh environment. So it's not really a grateful place to make paint. It's going to last for a long time. You have it's salt water, so you have the salt in the winds that sort of like breaks down the paint really fast. But we have our tricks, so it would last as long as possible. We've been making linseed oil paint since 1986, but my granddad, who actually started this, started working way earlier. So you can say that we are Sweden's oldest linseed oil maker, or we are the only one who has the connection to the handcraft, how they did in the early 1930s. So, just going to talk a little bit about the history of linseed oil paint. Henrik mentioned a little bit about it, how it was in Scandinavia. A little bit about our history, so you can see the connection. We try to change as little as possible and keep the tradition on to the next generation. We're going to talk a little bit about the making of linseed oil paint, the production, the components, and our products or systems. There's only benefits with linseed oil paint, of course. And I'm not really going to talk that much about windows, since we had a really nice presentation with the step-by-step already. But during the workshop session, we're going to show you the products that we recommend. And you can also try and paint, try to see how the paint feels to paint with. Now we also have a couple of brushes with us that are very good to paint linseed oil paint with. So is there anyone here who's ever tried to paint with linseed oil paint? Have you tried linseed oil paint anytime?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Was it Swedish or?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Sweden is actually the country in the world that does the most producers. So
So, but there's only one you need to think about when you're painting. So this is actually how it looked in Sweden during Sandy we talked about earlier. It was very pale and gray. We didn't really paint exterior surfaces. We didn't really have any, the craft was not really developed. Most of the painters were only doing decorative paintings, and quality was pretty bad actually. But if you went down to south of Europe, the craft had developed more, and they were also more used to color the minerals that they used for the housings in different colors. So even though we had a guild that was started in 1586, most of those painters were not really painters as we see today. There was sort of like more decorative painters, and I've seen some of the old pictures, and I don't know if you can call it an art. But when we built a castle in Stockholm during the late 1600s, the Swedish king wanted the castle to look like the French castle in Versailles. So we didn't have any painters in Sweden, so we hired labor from France. And one of the deals was that the French painters, were supposed to take apprentices, so we can to learn the craft in different types of craft, not just painting, different types of craft. So somewhere it started to develop in the craft in that time. But if you looked at the numbers like 1826, there were still only 500 painters in the guilds. As Henrik mentioned before, most of the people lived in the countryside, so there wasn't really that many houses that we painted in the cities. But the Swedish king abolished the guild system during 1846, and it actually made it possible for all kids to go to public school and to be able to read. And then it suddenly became easier to study, to become different type of professions. And painter was one of them. In this time, we still not really painting exterior surfaces. But you see the number is increasing much more faster. Just in 30 years' time, we have 1,800 registered painters, and in 1910 it's up against 15,000 painters registered. And it was actually during the industrial era where the people on the countryside migrated to the cities, and there wasn't any place to live. There was a lack of housing in the cities. And we were pretty used to, most of the houses in the cities were made by minerals or stone. So it took a really long time to build a new housing fast. So then they started to build wooden houses instead. And since many of the, this is the old town in Stockholm, since a lot of the houses were colored, they wanted the wooden houses to match, of course. So they built whole new neighborhoods or districts made of wooden houses where the workers could live. And this was somewhere in the 1900, in the 20th century, about 1910 somewhere. Then we had up to 15,000 registered people at 1910. So this was sort of like the peak of the craft. And during that time, our founder, my grandfather, maybe you see somewhere like, maybe it's more like him right now. He's starting to become an apprentice, and he went from being an apprentice for 5 years. Today, if you go to a regular school, they're going to be a painter in Sweden. It's only 3 years, and this is just the apprentice time was 5 years. So he started as an apprentice when he was like 13-year-old, because he only went for 12 years in public school. The apprentice job was really to handle the materials, because the big difference from that time until today is that the painters made all the paint themselves. There wasn't any producers of paint or putty or that type of materials, so they did everything. And it was often the apprentice that had a sort of like responsibility to handle the materials. And there was a really good education in how the materials worked. Because for every project you make, you customize the paint or the materials that you were going to use to make the best result as possible. And if you compare it to the south of Sweden or north, it's a very long country. It's a very different types of challenges to climate, maybe, or so all the master painters have different types of recipes or their way to adapt it to the local challenges. So my granddad worked as a painter for maybe 20 years. I don't know if you have been to Gothenburg sometime. No? Maybe? You have? We have a really big theme park that's called Liseberg. It's like, this is they painted all the carousels and everything. So this is the team actually who made all the painting, you know, pony carousels where you hand painted on and everything. So I think it's really cool. But then he worked as a painter. He started a couple of paint shops in Gothenburg, where we actually sold paint to, not to the painters, but to the consumers. And that was really odd in the 1950s, because you always hired craftsmen or painters to do the job. So it was a little bit of a revolutionary, maybe. And then about in the 70s, he's more focused in on boiling different types of oils. And when he became a pensionist, then he started with Bofari. Then he'd been working for like 60 years as, with the materials. He had an idea that he wanted to bring the old way back by mixing everything by hand, adapted to every project. I think he didn't really have the expectations that it would be such a success. So he had in some way, he came to a crossroad where he had to decide if he wanted to start to produce paint more industrial in bigger volumes, or if he wanted just to do the small volumes. So we met an engineer who built machines where you can make bigger batches of paint. But we still only make like 500-600 liters, maybe up to 700 liters. If you compare it to modern paint, maybe you do like 10,000 liters at a time. But you can only make like 600-700 liters of paint. So, and since linseed oil paint is just not one product, it can be a bunch of varieties of mixing according to which on which material you're going to paint and so on. He had to came up with different types of systems that I'm going to show you later. So this is the production in Göteborg, or in Gothenburg as we say. So just to make it simple, we make different products in white. We actually have a couple of, we have some paint with us today. So if you want to repaint the doors or everything, you can try, since it's white already, maybe. Then we do color pastes, and then we mix, when we're doing nuances or coloring, we do it all by hand. You know, if you go to a modern paint shop, they have a machine where you press the color code, and it blip, blip, and then it's finished. But we still do everything by hand. And this was something the painter learned to do earlier. They learned to adjust the color on the spot if they had to. But if you go to a regular painting education in Sweden today, you don't have to do that, because you can get the color, you can get the paint ready from the shop, of course. Though. So, today we are 12, 13 employees, depending on the season. We had tripled our production capacity. And I don't think my granddad could even imagine what we are today. So it's really cool to be a part of that. The most important thing in the linseed oil paint is, of course, linseed oil. We only use processed and washed, heated linseed oil. All our oil is heated up to at least 200 degrees. and that makes the oils really, really strong. Makes them dry a little bit faster, but you get really strong oils. And you can see as there are a lot of varieties depending on which product you want to do and what type of properties it's going to have. We usually work with maybe 7 or 8 different types of oils depending on which product you want to make. Otherwise, the components are just like natural components or ingredients. It's oil, linseed oil. Then the most important mineral is the zinc oxide. This is actually a recipe for 1 liter of paint. So it's a little bit of a secret, but if you really take a picture really fast, you can start making it use yourself. Now when you use zinc oxide, and when linseed oil and zinc oxide, when you mix them together, you get a chemical process that creates a really hard film, the film of the paint. So it's like, you can't be without that, then it's not no more a paint. Then we use chalk. Everything is in Swedish here, but we use chalk. That's the filler in the paint. So you can depending on which fattiness of the paint you want, is depending on the composition between chalk and linseed oil. Then we use titanium dioxide, that's a white pigment to make white paint. You can also use other types of oils for making the last layer more strong and more long-lasting. It's still linseed oil, but it's made in a different way. And as Peter talked earlier about, when you coloring glass, we also use like minerals and oxidized iron when we make those color pastes that we use. This is a picture from Provence in France, where you make something called ochre. I don't know if you heard about it somewhere. Yeah, if you go down to Provence, you see all the buildings are like pink or yellow, and it's very typical for the Mediterranean. But this is how it looks when you've been taking a shovel. This is how it looked when you washed it, when you burnt it, and when you mix them together, you get gold and ochre. But usually we can make any type of color that you prefer. So there is no limitations in the nuances we can make. We don't really do any standards. It's like that's more like what we don't do. So you can get any color that you want. So as I talked about earlier, linseed oil paint is just one thing. It's a variety of things, but to make it simple for you who's going to use it. Some linseed oil paints are supposed to add like solvents or extra oil or something. But we made everything all our products are already finished, so you don't have to do anything. We have different types of systems for different types of materials. So this is the system for indoors, if you have new material. This is for painting metal. And this is for painting new windows outside. So you have a primer, you have that contains more oil, and then you have the second layer contains less oil, and then the last layer is containing a little bit more oil, and also one of those oils that makes a little more harder surface to make it last longer. I should say that we don't use any solvents, we don't use any preservatives or any biocides in our paints. We're really friendly to paint with.
Does the paint have a lifetime when in the can?
Yeah. A lot of people say the opposite, that they don't. You can have it for us a long time. But most of the components are already old. But the linseed oil paint is best when the linseed oil is fresh. But at least, up to maybe 3, 4, 5 years, you don't have to do anything. Then you at least have to try it to see if it dries as it's supposed to and behave like normal.
What if unopened can is left in the minus temperature?
You can, if you don't have any solvents, you can store the paint down to 37 degrees minus minus 37 degrees. So it's not sensitive at all. This is some of our, this is the bragging moment, as Peter also did. Some of our projects that we have delivered paint to. This is actually linseed oil paint on
Plaster?
Yeah.
Lime plaster?
Yeah. Which is really, sorry. I think this is, that's why I use this picture first, because it's really odd. People think that, oh, you can't paint with linseed oil paint on this type of material. But it was exactly what you did earlier. So we have a lot of buildings in Göteborg that's actually still painted with linseed oil paint. This is actually from Gotland, where Henrik lives. And this is the really fancy boutique in Oslo in Norway. Just to see some cool projects that we have delivered to. This is located on an island on the west coast. Really rough environment with the salt and everything. We can also adapt the paint to make it more extremely, this is more extreme conditions, as this boat, or it's a bathing, we're bathing in the ocean, but you have like water from every direction, or wind and salt and everything. So then you can even try to make the paint stay a little bit longer. So I think it's pretty cool projects. You can also make like metal paint. This is on an old, I think it's like an old medieval fortress in Gothenburg. This is on a cannon, and then we have our system for metal on the roof. And indoors, of course. So what are the benefits with linseed oil paint? I think there's only benefits. But of course, but you have a really long history and experience. It's very well done. There's so many references, not only the one that I showed, but you have so many references where I have used linseed oil paint, and it works for such a long time. There isn't any better protection on wood. You can't really get the wood to rotten with linseed oil paint. If you use plastic paints, if you get water behind it, it can, the paint is too elastic, so it won't release the water. But if you get water behind the linseed oil paint too much, it releases and let the wood dry out. It's very easy to paint and repaint if you do it as you're supposed to. The only thing you need to do probably is to wash the surface and maybe paint it a couple of times. 1 liter linseed oil paint stretches up to maybe 12 square meters. So that's the double. If you compare it to a water-based paint, it's the double of. It stretches double as much. Sorry. It's very friendly for the painter and the environment. As I said, we don't use any solvents or preservatives or biocides in our paints. So it's most of the other things are just natural stuff. So you shouldn't drink the paint, but you don't have any emissions. That's really bad for you. You don't contribute to any microplastic in the ocean when the paint is breaking down in the nature. Most of the paint is just like disappearing. Compared to plastic paint, where you have, I saw a report from the EU that 58% of the microplastics in our oceans worldwide is coming from house paints, plastic paints. 58%. That's a lot. Yeah, we get a really nice step-by-step. But if we talk more about what Henrik also mentioned before, we see that we get a couple of calls a week from customers or even painting companies that's going to start to paint with linseed oil paint instead of the modern paint, or because we have a problem with that the modern paint doesn't last. Usually you give up to 5 years warranty in Sweden for a job you made, and the paint doesn't even last up to 4 years before it starts to crack. So for those who, Linseed paint on windows has become get a really well-known reputation of using that instead. Actually, we have a lot of TV shows in Sweden where we talk about restoring. It's become really trendy in a way, or to use old methods. But we get new customers all the time that's starting to paint with linseed paint, especially on windows, but it's become very popular. So it's a really nice business. If you haven't started with it, it's a nice business. It's really fun to work with as well. Do we have any questions? Oh, everything was crystal clear. Are you just hungry, maybe? Maybe everybody's hungry right now. So.
Yeah, but it's not food yet, because we have one more presentation.
Maybe a small question. After work with the paint, how wash the painter? What, with water? Or
The brushes?
Yes, brushes.
Since there's oil in the paint, you can use soap. But not like the hand soap, but the soap. No, not example, but soap. But I don't think that's the name in English. But it has to have a little higher, pH, to release the fats. But it depends on which kind of brushes you use. So I'm going to show you a brush that we recommend that's made of animal hair. But if you use, most of the brushes you use are probably like plastic straws. And those are not really good to get a really nice finish.
Can you use this paints with sprayer or roll?
You can. I mean, if you're just going to transport the paint from the tin or the bucket to the surface, you can spray it. But you still have to use the brush to work the paint into the material. So you don't really save that much time with it.
To get the finishing effect, or it doesn't work?
No, it works, but these two things. If you spray, you get it. If you spray it, you probably will get much less paint on the surface, and that affects the lifetime. So if you paint like 3 layers with a spray, all the 3 layers. The total amount of the film is much thinner. But if you use a brush, you can applicate more paint, and you can also work the paint more. I mean, we don't usually recommend to use this to spray it, but you can. It's not impossible, but we wouldn't recommend it.
And how you recommend to repaint your paints after 3-4 years?
If our goal is depending on where you live and the surroundings and everything, but if you do everything properly, you shouldn't have to repaint. Theoretically, it may be 10 or 12 years at least. Then you don't have to start over again, hopefully.
It's when outside, no?
Outside, yeah. The inside is it can last much longer, of course. Cool, but we, yeah.
Maybe can you explain the differences between boiled oil and simple oil, not boiled?
Yeah. When you heat the oil and you washed it and you processed it, if you press the raw oil, it contains a lot of things. Since you press it from a plant, you press the seeds of a plant. The plant has E vitamin and antioxidants in the seeds to make the plant not dry out and die. And when you press the seeds, you get a lot of those you get a lot of those extracts to the oil, and make the oil dry really, really slow. So when you heat it, you get rid and wash it, you get rid of all those particles like antioxidants or E vitamin. And since we want the paint to dry well, we don't want those those things in the oil to make paint. Was that a good explanation? Yeah, so we don't use raw oil at all. We just use heated oil or. Yeah?
I would like to ask about smell. Does it take long, for example, when we paint a window in interior?
I mean, my grandfather always smelled oil, so he has really smooth hands. But I don't think it. I think it's like if you like the smell or not. But it's nothing that's bad for you.
No solvent.
No solvent, so it's not bad for you. So it's like it smells. But things that doesn't smell, is that better? So I mean, you use a lot of preservatives in water-based paint. It doesn't really smell. I think it smells, but it doesn't really smell anything. And if you look at one of the biggest brands in Sweden that produce water-based paint, the paint at least contains 60 to 70% water, just tap water. And then you need a lot of preservatives to keep the paint from not rotten. So that's really bad for you. And it's really expensive water. Yeah?
Last question.
Last question. You said you can use it on plaster. Are there any requirements, all types of plasters, or some kinds of?
Yeah, you should plasters. Yeah, you can. But the thing is, the plaster is getting. If you paint it on plaster outside, the plaster is going to get when it gets moist or have the damp in the plaster, it becomes. It gets from pH neutral to like a higher pH. And when you're having a higher pH, it's going to break down the oil in the paint. So usually you put like a tongue oil, if you know what that is. And then you paint the linseed oil on top of that, so you don't get direct contact with the plaster and the linseed oil paint.
Yeah, I think there is a different like method than painting wood. So you maybe need to know this before doing it.
But also I didn't understand because you showed in your presentation some brick houses painted with your paint, right?
Yeah, it's like it's on Gotland.
Yeah, so these houses are plastered, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but these buildings were this on Gotland was I think limestone with lime plaster and then painted.
Yeah.
And no brick in that building. Oh, I guess.
No, exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you so much.
There is a chance to try out the paint and test it later.
And you can feel the smell.
Yeah.
It smells so good.
So now it's time for the last presentation by Björn, who is the founder of Eskilstuna Kulturfestival. Metalware is an important part of Windows, and you know everything about this.
No.
Most of us, for sure.
Well, our factory is situated in Sweden, in a town called Eskilstuna, and it's about 120 kilometers west from Stockholm, if you know. A little about Sweden. Stockholm is in the southern part, or 1/3 from the bottom, and Eskilstuna is on the same level as Stockholm. Eskilstuna is very well known, or was very well known over the globe for its metalware. Already in the late 1600s, there were forges and a lot of people that made hardware for weapons, hardware for the household, hardware for farmers, and hardware for building. The tradition has been that this field of hand-forged hardware has expanded, and there were 100 different workshops making hardware for buildings. And later on, they were, in the 1800s, they were transformed to mechanical workshops. Already from the start, the products were distributed all over Sweden and also around the Baltic Sea. When the manufacturing of hardware and fittings for doors and windows mainly was transformed into machinery works, then the number of workshops were diminished, but still there were at least 30, 40 shops in Eskilstuna at the turn of the century in 1900. During the times, the development of everything has gone with a good speed, and old products has been abandoned, and new products have been developed, and so nowadays we can't find any workshop that manufactures hardware as it looked like 50 years ago. And we found out that for window restorers, for carpenters and others, other professionals who restored old buildings, it was a problem to find old hardware. They could find some piece here and some piece there and reuse it, but there was no one who could produce the old patterns. So we started in 1988 to manufacture door hardware with the fittings. Today we have a factory. We are 17 employees, and we manufacture hardware fittings for not only for doors and windows, but also for kitchen cupboards and for railings and so on. We market these products through about 200 resellers all over Sweden, and we also have some 10 resellers in Norway, some in Denmark, 5 or 6 in Finland, and 2 in Estonia. The main, most of our products are of course of Swedish origin. Most of them are from the old Eskilstuna factories. And we find our patterns in old catalogs. We find them from old houses, and sometimes we get samples from our customers with a question, can you make this for us? And so we have developed rather good assortment of hardware and fittings. And this is some of the products. It's a picture from our showroom in the factory. And we make a lot of different door handles. We make we make hooks throat hooks and hinges is a main production area for us. I think the second biggest hinge manufacturer in Sweden, even if we are small. Many other hardware manufacturers have went to the Far East for production of their products. We maintain our factory in Sweden. So hinges is a main part of what we make. Window hardware as corner irons and corner hinges. There is also a great deal of what we manufacture. Johan showed you the corner irons of when restoring windows. There is that one. You recognize it. You see that many of our products are raw material, and some of them are zinc plated. It depends on our customers. Many of them want to paint them with a corrosion resistant paint themselves. And some of them want to the window factories, for instance, or the smaller window factories, they want them zinc plated because sometimes the windows are painted on site, and when you have the raw material on windows exposed for the humid air, they will rust. So we make them either zinc plated or raw steel. Window closers. We have in Sweden we have mainly outward swinging windows traditionally, and from the 1700s, early 1800s, late 1800s, and early 1900s, different types. That's the development through the years. And then we have a great job of closers for inward swinging windows, which are very common from the turn of the century, 1900 and forward. We make also other types of fasteners for outward swinging windows, hooks, and pieces to make it possible to have a certain degree of opening of the windows. We also make ventilation. What do you call it? Ventilation pieces for windows. Nowadays, there is a regulation in Sweden that you must have a certain amount of air passing through the building, and it often goes through the windows. And that one is brass, so no plastic, no aluminium. We also make bolts and flush bolts for the doors from that size to that size. I had a look on your, well, there is a good one. The doors, they're very tiny ones, too small, I think. Still, we have a lot of inner windows in Sweden, like here. And there is an assortment of fittings for inner windows. And the tradition was different in different parts of Sweden. So, Claes' hometown, there were those fittings, and in other parts we had other types of fittings. We may also make, as I said, kitchen cupboard fittings. There is an assortment for kitchen cupboards. You saw all the door handles, and there are roses and escutcheons for door handles. So some door handles were designed with a special escutcheon, a special rose, and so we have different types. And then there are handles for spanulets in half modern windows. We also make pull handles for entrance doors. Those here are from the 1920s. There are some others from the late 19th century, and from the turn of the century, the Art Nouveau time. We also recently started to manufacture locks for inner doors. Those are from the mid 19th century up till mid 20th century. There are locks for doors from the beginning of the 20th century up till now, you can see. But formerly, all the locks were made in steel and brass. Today, there are many plastic parts and zinc die-cast parts in the locks from other manufacturers. But we still use all steel or steel and brass. Can maybe be seen that modern locks always have round corners. We still make, yes, we do them too for the door factories, but for the other ones we use square corners locks, which is not otherwise available. Well, I said hooks, different types. We don't only make parts for the Swedish market. We make parts for other countries like Norway, and we have a special assortment for Norwegian building restorers. Window restorers. And also window fittings for the Norwegian market. Those are not the same as used in Sweden. The same applies to Denmark, where we have different types that are special for Denmark.
So the difference is in design, not in function.
Yes, not the function. but the design.
Excuse me, all the hinges here are attached with screws. They are on top. None of them is hammered in, or because here in Lithuania, these are, yeah.
There you have
Also,
a
yeah.
range of
But more popular in Sweden are
depends on the door. The traditional door in Sweden is a plain door without rebate. And therefore, and also in our neighbor countries. So therefore, most of the hinges are made for plain doors. But when we have rebated doors and windows, we use that type of hinge. And we have them both for the Swedish market, the Norwegian and the Finnish market. And what I want to say is that we are able to make hinges out of your specifications. So if you know that there are hinges or other fittings that you regularly want to renew, we can make a series for you. We often, with new products, we often start with a small series, let's say 50 pieces, something like that, or 200 pieces, and then we see what happens. Are they sold or are they not? If they are sold, okay, then we go on. Next series will be maybe 500, and we keep them on stock in our factory. There are also some window fittings for the Danish market. Then just to show that we are not a trading company, but we are a manufacturing company. I took some photos from our factory. Regular machines, nothing special. They're making hinges step by step. So here it's a small square sheet metal piece, and we start to stamp our logotype on it. And then there is he stamps. He starts to roll the knuckle. And there, by coincidence, you see, here we have the blanks. There are the plain blanks, and then preform, and then eventually they will pass this tool, and there they will be rolled. So we make the hinges step by step. And that also makes it easier for us to make specials, to make small series for different markets, of different demands. We need a lot of press tools for all our products, and there are a few, well, there are a third of them. The hinge blanks are countersunk for the screws by hand. There are some knobs for the hinges with many different shapes of knobs for the hinges, and we have a technique where we roll the knuckle first, and then we press in the knob. That makes it very, very easy to have different shapes of the knobs. Well, very is our NC lathe to make the knobs. Here we put in the pin in the metu of a hinge. There are also many types of jobs that are made, that are handmade. For instance, here where most of our spandulets for windows, like there is one door here up there. We have a special production line for them. But then sometimes we make them out of glass, and they are thicker in the rod, and then we have no standardized production line for them. So it's a lot of hand work. We can't weld anything because the welding appeared in the 1920s in Sweden. Formerly everything was riveted, so we have to rivet everything that should be assembled. So here is a riveting station. There are kitchen cupboards fitted in that case. Then we assemble products. We can't see what type of product it is, but there is a lot of hand working with assembly. There are just some of lock pressings. We have our own tool room with machinery, so we can maintain our press tools, make our press tools and maintain them. We also use spark erosion in our tool making. There's behind here is the tool making. As we have quite a wide range of products, we have a lot of components. As I said, we have different knobs for different markets and so on. So we store our components into paternoster storage systems. And they are 6 meters high and 150 shelf meters of each of them. There is part of our warehouse where we have all the finished products before dispatching. And the last picture is our factory. We have 1,200 square meters factory, building which we own, which we from the start rented, but now purchased. And from the office with 5 people in the office, and then the factory is we have 2 men in the dispatch and 10 people in the workshop. So that's something about Eskilstuna Kulturhuslag. I hope you have seen what we are able to manufacture, and we are willing to supply your needs too. But we can't sell to everybody. We have to have some reseller here, and that's our problem, to find a reseller. So if anybody of you wants to start a shop for window restoration products and or other building restoring products, please get in contact with us.
you.
Thank you.
I think lunch arrived, so I think we have to keep the questions from here until after lunch, when you can also touch and see some of the samples of the products they make. So now it works like this. In this coffee room, there is a cabbage soup, and it's a meat stew package for and drink for everybody. So please grab it. I hope there are not too many vegetarians, so we only have one. So if you're a vegetarian, you have to. I think there are several soups for you. So please go around and take your lunch, and then we continue in about an hour.